Psalm 116 is written by someone who's not just in a storm, but someone who has passed through a storm. Someone who's not just in the midst of trouble, but on the other side of trouble looking back. And when I look at Psalm 116, it says to me, someday it'll be my turn. And this fall, that happened in our life. August 12th, I had Bell palsy, and it affected the right side of my face and my ability to speak. We thought that would be a quick recovery, but it's ended up being a rather lengthy recovery for the nerve to regenerate itself. God has been very kind and good to provide us with gifted staff and Al Frank and Alex Eanes to speak throughout the fall. And so that's been a waiting game. But then 2 weeks ago, I was working out at the gym, lifting weights, and I had a sharp shooting pain in my chest. And I called my doctor, hoping he would just check it out and I would not have to go to ER. And he said, no, go to ER and get it checked out. So that started an all-day journey in the ER. And they quickly determined I was not having a heart attack. But they began to take my blood samples and checking it every hour and every 2 to 3 hours. And the enzyme levels in my blood were not changing. And finally, later in the day, they're going to do a third blood test. And we determined as we got the result of that back, we'd make a decision about going home and maybe coming back early in the week to do a stress test or something of that nature to determine what was going on. Well, they took the third blood test. They came back. The nurse walked into the room. She said, your enzyme levels are way up. I talked to your cardiologist. You're scheduled for tomorrow morning, Saturday, for an angiogram. And we're also waiting to get a room open, and we're going to put you on the 4th floor of the cardiac unit here in the hospital. And so the decision was made. Friday night, 6 hours later, we're now in a hospital room waiting for the test on Saturday morning. And while I'm in the room, they brought a roommate in. He was a paraplegic and had all kinds of skin sores and a lot of pain, and he was a diabetic. And Jim had had 2 open heart surgeries, and he had died in both of them on the table, and God revived him. And he told me that story several times. And in fact, he felt the need to also tell me that story when he knew I was going to have open heart surgery. So it was an interesting journey. But my room was every 15 minutes, 10 minutes, nurses were in and out. It was like the landing strip at the DFW airport for the next 3 days. But Saturday came, and the test didn't happen. And we didn't know why. I hadn't had anything to drink or eat. And finally, my cardiologist came into the room late Saturday, and he said, Jerry, I never even got the word you were here. And I thought, wow, what happened? And he said my physician assistant also wasn't contacted. And he apologized for the miscommunication. He said, I'll schedule you for an angiogram the first thing Monday morning. And so in this kind of crazy room setting that was just so incredibly busy with nurses and people in and out, I thought, okay, God, you're in charge of all this confusion and craziness, and I'll just stay put and we'll find out Monday what's going on. So Monday morning came. I was the first one up for an angiogram, and probably the first one to hear that day that I completely plucked the test, that I had blockage all through my heart, and they were going to have to do open heart surgery. So they scheduled a surgical team. They were in and out of my room all day Saturday, all day Monday, testing and talking to me and making plans. And it was finally about 5 o'clock Monday afternoon that things kind of quieted down, and I had an extended time where I could pray. And during that time, I said to God, God, for really one of the first times in my life, I don't know my future. I'm transitioning here at the Springs. I don't know what the next steps are going to be. There's a sense of kind of fear and anxiety. And whatever the future holds, I want to walk with you through that. And that hospital bed over the next hour became an altar. And I sought God's face. And during that extended time of talking to God, He gave me an assurance that, Jerry, all this craziness that's been happening from Friday, Saturday, Sunday in the room and people in and out, the miscommunication, I want you to know that that's been my way of taking care of you. I have made a decision so you didn't have to make a decision. I kept you here so you didn't have to debate about leaving. And so I knew God was going to be with me walking into the future. And so Tuesday morning, open heart surgery. They replaced 4 arteries in all 4 major chambers of my heart. I actually it was the day of November 6th when we were all voting that day. And they actually came to my room at the end of that day and they let me vote. How crazy is that? Open heart surgery and I still got to vote at the end of the day. And 3 days later, I'm back home. And what's God doing? I think God is just remaking me for whatever He has for in the future. Today, my blood pressure is perfect. I battled that for up and down for several years. I'm not on a single pill for my blood pressure medicine. I'm already walking over a mile a day, and I'm not even out of the hospital over a week. And so God is so good. And the psalmist said in Psalm 116, "What will I give to God for all of His goodness to me?" And the first thing I want to give to Him is to declare to you from the core of my being that whether I was in heaven today or present with you, God is good. God is always good. And yet that psalm goes on to say, it says, "What will I give to the Lord for all His goodness to me?" And sometimes just saying that God is good, our hearts are so filled with praise, but it just doesn't seem to be enough. And a few years ago, I was exposed to a group called Cure International. It's a group of surgeons that travel the world to third world countries where they do surgery for families and children that don't have the resources to have correctable surgery, and primarily working in Africa. And that psalm, "What will I give to the Lord?" It struck me, and this week I wrote a check to Cure International. It's just my way of saying I want to give this to another family where they have an opportunity to have correctable surgery in their life. Not a big gift, but it was just something small. It was something simple, and it was something soon, because I realized if I procrastinated, I probably wouldn't get around to doing it. But I offer to you today my praise to God for His goodness, and I'd share with you how I responded by just giving a gift so it might help somebody else have correctable surgery where they don't have the resources for that. What will I give to God for all His goodness to me? I declare His goodness to you, and I pay it forward for another family.